Evaluation is a science and an art. And teachers, for very good reasons, get apoplectic when anybody from business would say, oh, well, I know how to teach. They don't. They're not trained. Similarly, people in business say, well, then why are we asking teachers and principals who are trained in pedagogy to implement a human resource system for which they were not trained? Evaluation is a technical thing that businesses have invested hundreds of millions of dollars in developing these systems and training people to do them well. And this is an area where I think charter schools may be a model for us, in that many of them have an executive director and have staff who handle the administration, the business end of the school, and they have a headmaster and principals who handle the curriculum and instruction and work with teachers on practicing their craft. And that's the route that public schools really have to look at. So we were not so happy with the regulations. We were not so happy with the outcome because we felt that it was trying to get the existing system to do something it wasn't designed to do. I heard an ed school professor use the phrase putting a jet engine on a stagecoach, and I do attribute it because I think it's such a great, metaphor, but that's exactly what we're doing with evaluations. So I think there does have to be a lot of work still to be done. The multiple measures can be identified, but we're asking people who have no experience using and generating that kind of data to design them. We need to accept the fact that there's an expertise here that's missing that needs to be brought in.
Richard, would you like to speak to some of the...
Oh, but I have... Well, you're listening to a side of a story that it's difficult for me to respond to everything that I've heard, but the policies that I think Jason wants, putting great teachers in having great schools, I don't believe are hurt by the policies that Stanford Children is trying to change. So, for example, in Boston, a first-year provisional teacher, a first-year teacher, has as much right to stay in the building as a second, third, or fourth-year teacher. The only issue is every year there are budget fluctuations that somehow move people out and then bring them back to schools. So it looks far more disruptive than it really is. And at the end of the day, most teachers end up back in the schools where they started from. And sometimes it's a 2-week interruption. Now, I understand some of the stellar examples. We have a school that has, a few dozen brand new teachers, and for whatever reason, there's some mismanagement of the budget, and then people have to leave, and then they come back, and people say that's disruptive. But I can tell you that with 5,300 teachers in Boston, and only a few hundred moving places every year, at the end of the day, very, very few teachers actually move. And those, whenever that's not the rule, and there's something that's, I would say, a greater movement than that, it's because of a one-time change in the budget structure, or it's just poor management on behalf of the school system.
I'll just say one thing, because I know Richard probably feels like me. I don't want to get into a full-fledged debate on the initiative this evening. I'm sure there will be opportunity for that as we move forward into 2012. But I would just say a couple things. One is, there's just the fundamental philosophical question that we all have to ask ourselves. And that is, should decisions around who's in front of our kids teaching in our classrooms, who's running our schools, should those decisions be based on the quality of a person's work or how long they've been working in a system, regardless of their performance? And to me, that is a fundamental question, and I can understand why people might feel we should have seniority-only based decisions, and why people like myself would feel no, based on what I've seen personally as a student and as a teacher, that it should be based, especially if we want to close the achievement gap for our low-income students, in our urban centers in particular, it should be based on the quality of the work that the person produces.